Have you ever had that moment when someone you're really into just kind of disappeared, ghosted you? That's the term we hear these days. You know the drill where you have these three incredible dates, sparks are flying everywhere, you're really into this person and getting to know them, and then nothing, radio silence. Or maybe you've carefully crafted this message that you sent on a dating app that's been sitting on red for days. And what is the first thought that pops in your head? What did I do wrong? Today, I want to help you flip that script entirely. I'm going to share why rejection in dating isn't what you think it is all about, and why these moments that you feel like you've gotten punched in the stomach are the best things to happen to your love life. Welcome to Intentionally Single, Seeking But Not Settling. I'm Lauren Jean, your host, integrative wellness coach, and hypnotist. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and mind-body strategies to help you live life intentionally single and content while remaining open to possibilities. Unlike typical dating advice, we focus on personal fulfillment to attract genuine love. Join us to transform unconscious patterns and embrace your intentionally single lifestyle. Stop feeling deflated by the dating world and start prioritizing the most important relationship, the one with yourself. Before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. This podcast has re-released in November. So we are going on, November? 4 months. I had to do that in my head. I'm a little tired. We are going on 4 months now, and I just wanted to call out and let you know that this podcast is really growing, and I'm really excited for it because there are many countries listening to this. First, we have the United States, which is most of my listeners, and then there's Austria and the Philippines, Germany, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, the Netherlands, Belgium, Singapore, France, New Zealand, a country I've never heard of before, Bahrain, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Taiwan, Finland, Greece, and even India. I am so happy that this podcast is reaching you out there in those countries. And I'm really excited to begin to open this up even more. And if you are someone listening from that country, please reach out and say, hey, reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at the girl with the vine tattoo. And you can even email me at intentionallysinglepodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. So let's get into today's show. Today, I'm getting into something that I know everyone has experienced, whether we want to admit it or not. It's that moment that you're kind of staring at your phone, typing and deleting the same message. It's like, hey, checking in. And it's the same text for the 15th time that you have recrafted. Your stomach is in knots. You're trying to figure out if you came on too strong or maybe not strong enough. Like maybe you're not showing enough attention and that you're interested. It's kind of like this weird limbo where rejection is meeting self-doubt in your mind. And suddenly you're questioning not just this potential relationship, but your entire self-worth. It's that moment. We're going to go there today. Before sharing my own rejection story, I want to do a quick emotional reset with you. I just want you to listen to my words. If you're driving or doing something that needs your attention, keep your eyes open. But if you can, I invite you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let it all the way out. I want you to imagine yourself standing by a beautiful, clear mountain stream. The water's flowing gently, the sun's hitting it just right so it sparkles. It's beautiful. The stream is your emotional energy today. Now think about a recent rejection or one that still stings, one that you can remember right now. Where do you feel that in your body? Maybe there's tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, or tension in your shoulders. Take that feeling and imagine it as if it's a small pebble and you're holding it in your hand. Look at it with curiosity, like you're a scientist, not a judge. This pebble isn't evidence of your unworthiness. It's just a moment when two people meet. They weren't in alignment. Now I want you to gently toss that pebble into the stream and watch the current carry it away. the water smoothing its rough edges as it goes down the stream. Feel that lightness in your body as you let go of that old story. With each breath, just say to yourself, rejection is just redirection. It's not a statement about my worth. I am whole and complete and worthy of love, exactly how I am. Take one more deep breath. And whenever you're ready, bring your awareness back here with me, carrying this lighter perspective with you. Okay, so my rejection story. It was actually last summer. So in the summer of 2024, I connected with, let's call him Jimmy, on Facebook dating. We hit it off right away. I was about to go on a family vacation, so there was no time to meet up before we left. Me and Jimmy talked on the phone pretty much right away. That's how I like to do it in the beginning, to see if someone is really interested, because it tends to be that if someone is interested, they will want to hear your voice and connect if they are serious about actually meeting you rather than just a texting buddy. Otherwise, they kind of just disappear. I've had this happen. I wonder if you have. So anyway, we spoke, and on more than one occasion, we would talk on the phone often. He was interested in me and what I was into, podcasts, school, deep conversations. And he was very well into deep conversations as well. And then he shared about himself. He was younger. Yeah, made me feel like a cougar, but I don't care at this point. It used to bother me. Not at this point. He was 38. I'm 45. But I really, like I said, I didn't care at this time. I embraced it this time. I really tend to attract younger men, and this is how I've been most of my life. Anyway, he shared something about himself. He was a musician, he wrote his own music, and he played guitar and he sang. I was really impressed. He even shared his music with me that was very personal to him, so I felt special. He sent me YouTube videos and just clips of him singing. I really liked it. Anyway, we texted for a while I was on my trip, and we would send silly pictures back and forth. And when I returned, we went on a total of 3 times. So we went out 3 times. I really had a nice time with him. He even put together a really intriguing date based on what I told him I liked and my personality. So I was even more impressed. He was really putting in the effort. I felt like he was different, someone I could really get to know. But soon enough, he started getting quieter and quieter, and I knew something was up. And at this point, I did not think it was me who did something, because I'm so far along in my personal development that I understand I did not do something. So I was upfront with him and I told him I'd like to get to know him more. And he could share with me if he was struggling with something or, just had something on his mind. So he shared a struggle he was facing with his job. He was unhappy. And I gave him some space and told him what I needed. And he never answered me back. Complete silence. I check my phone probably every 15 minutes or so just to see, because I tend to put my phone away. But I was honestly curious. I realized I had gotten close too fast in my head, and I was feeling rejected at this point because I thought maybe I was too harsh or too honest in what I said to him and telling him what I needed. How did he take what I said? Well, I never found out because I never heard from him again. I did get over it pretty fast. I would say probably within a week that I can remember, I just stopped thinking about him. This was not my first rodeo. So I want to know, does this sound familiar? I know I'm not alone here. So since before this experience with Jimmy, I've discovered, both through my own messy dating journey and working with clients, that rejection itself isn't actually the problem at all. It's what we make rejection mean about ourselves that causes all of this pain. And I know this might sound a little wild at first, but the painful moments of ghosting, the unreturned texts, those awkward, I'm not feeling it conversations, they might actually be your greatest teachers on this path to building this kind of self-worth that nothing and no one can shake. And let me explain why. When rejection hits us in our 40s or our 50s, really at any time, it feels different than it did in our 20s, doesn't it? Each ghosting incident or this failed attempt at making connection with someone feels heavier as time passes. Because every night after you get home from your day or as you settle into your bed, your mind starts to wander. You stare at that vacant side of your bed and you're imagining your invisible person's head just kind of resting there. You're thinking about everything. The clock's on your nightstand. It seems to laugh at you because another day has passed and you are still alone. You mentally count the years, 5, 10, maybe more, wondering how much longer you're going to be alone. Maybe forever comes to mind. And it's even more frustrating because you've done all the work that you could possibly do and still nothing. Gone to therapy every Tuesday at 4 p.m. for years. You've filled 3 journals, maybe more, with insights. You've been to retreats where you wrote your limiting beliefs on a piece of paper and burned them in a bonfire with a bunch of other people. But yet, Friday night still finds you alone on the couch, scrolling through dating apps without matches or just using dating apps as entertainment or a way to fill your time because maybe something will happen. And your therapist says you're doing everything right, but still only messages from creeps and no response from the guy who seems to be decent from his profile. So, what the F? What the actual F? We interpret rejection as evidence of our lack of worth or feelings of shame. After each unsuccessful dating experience, we turn into these amateur detectives and we want to analyze every interaction for clues about why we're not chosen. Was it what I said about pineapple on pizza? Or was it mentioning my ex? Should I have waited longer to respond to that text? Am I being too eager? We create these multiple dating profiles on all different apps, trying different approaches, using different photos, even considering lowering our standards, all because we're internalizing this toxic message that rejection means we're somehow flawed at our deepest core of who we are. I want to share something that completely changed my perspective. It comes from therapist Marissa Peer's book, and I received her training on rapid transformational therapy. So I've done a lot of work around Marissa Peer's work. Well, I got this information from her book called Ultimate Confidence. And in this book, she writes, quoting Eleanor Roosevelt, "No one can make you inferior without your consent." Isn't that such a powerful quote? No one can make you inferior without your consent. And then she adds something else powerful. We need to be accepted, but first you have to accept yourself. We need to not be rejected, but no one can reject you unless you let them. Let that sink in for just a moment. No one can reject you without your permission or consent. If you're hearing this now coming out of my mouth and thinking, well, that's just not true. People reject me all the time. But this is the insight that changed everything for me. Our deepest fear as humans is rejection, and our greatest need is acceptance. And this isn't some just crazy pop psychology. It's actually like wired into us as these tribal beings, as I'm sure you've probably heard many times before in other places. Think about it. When we were part of an early human tribe, rejection didn't just hurt your feelings. That's not what they were worried about then. It could actually mean death. If you got cast from your tribe, your chances of survival went down. Like you could actually die out there alone with no one to protect you and have your back. But we don't live like those tribes anymore. Our survival does not depend on one person accepting us. So let's flip the script for a minute. Think about the last time you rejected someone else. I've done this. Maybe a second date or someone trying to sell you something, or even just saying no to an invitation to a party that you just didn't want to go to. When you say no, you're making a careful assessment of that person's value as a human being. Are you doing that? Or was it simply about timing or what was going on in your life? Like what was actually going on in your life? Because no, you were not making an assessment of that person's value. This is not, we don't do this. We just don't. I don't know anyone who does this. Marissa explains this. In order for someone to reject you, they have to believe something about you, which is going on in their mind, not yours. You have to believe everything they believe in order to allow them to reject you. She tells this incredible story about a holy man who was being criticized by a journalist. And despite the insults that the journalist gave to this holy man, he kept smiling. And whatever the journalist asked why, the holy man replied, "If you offer me a gift and I don't accept it, who still has the gift?" The journalist says, "I do." "Exactly," the holy man replied. "I don't need and I don't accept your criticisms. They belong to you. They can stay with you." Isn't that really cool? When you increase your own self-worth and sense of self-worth, it becomes almost impossible for anyone to make you feel rejected. The key isn't trying to fit in or belong. It's just kind of feeling so comfortable in your own skin that you radiate this confidence to others. This is a lot of the work that I have done over the years, and I'm so glad to share this with you. At the heart of all this pain are beliefs that we've collected like souvenirs from our past experiences. Kind of like, I need to become the perfect version of myself before I'm worthy of a relationship. Or if I were more attractive, successful, outgoing, interesting, you fill in the blank, I would have found someone by now. The universe will bring the right person when I'm ready. These are the kind of beliefs that kind of get reinforced every single time we scroll through Instagram and see your best friend from college, her what appears to be perfect feed, her beach vacations with her husband, maybe some homemade dinners, maybe she's one of those Pinterest wives, maybe she goes to couples yoga. And you're forgetting that she once confided in you about their marriage counseling sessions. So she's not perfect either. But what's really cool is that there's science that backs this up. There was some research published in Social, Cognitive, and Affective Neuroscience. And the scientist's name is, I can't pronounce this properly, Hsu, it's HSU, and colleagues. And they found that romantic rejection and acceptance actually can activate many of the same brain regions. Mostly, and you don't need to know this, but I really love neuroscience, so I'm going to share it with you. So it affects mostly the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex and the anterior insula. These areas help us understand other people's intentions and emotional states. And our brains are constantly scanning our social environment for signals about whether we're accepted or rejected. So we're constantly looking around and we're using our eyes to take in that information. And besides, also all of our other senses. This is a basic survival instinct. And this explains why rejection feels so physically painful. It can actually feel painful because it activates the exact same brain regions that physical pain activates. So it's not just a feeling, this is neurological inside of us. So don't feel bad or think that there's something wrong with you if you're feeling physical pain because of rejection. So the price of making rejection personal goes way beyond feeling just bad for a few days. Because when we live in constant fear of being rejected, we start compromising who we really are at a deep level. We might find ourselves downplaying achievements because we're afraid of intimidating someone that we really like. So maybe we rearrange our schedules to accommodate someone that we barely know, like on dating apps. We abandon our own interests and hobbies to become what we think others want. I remember compromising myself when I met my ex-husband. He was totally into video games, and I tried so hard to like them too. I just really wanted to be able to talk with him about something. So we had a video game night. One day in a snowstorm, I ended up driving to his apartment, and I ended up getting trapped there because it was so bad. But we started playing, but I was so bored and I was so tired from the drive that I just ended up falling asleep on the couch, not too far into the game. It was pretty interesting. I just kind of conked out there. So there's science on this that's pretty alarming. When we experience rejection, our brain's threat response system will turn on. This triggers stress hormones like cortisol that I've spoken about in other episodes, but this happens over time and it can actually damage our immune system. It will disrupt your sleep patterns and even impact your heart health. Chronic fear of rejection can lead to this increased inflammation in the body, which is a physiological response linked to depression and anxiety. And what's even worse is something called rejection sensitivity, which is a heightened vigilance for signs of social exclusion. So people with high rejection sensitivity tend to see rejection everywhere, creating this self-fulfilling prophecy. And I've spoken about this. This is actually one of the mind rules where what you seek out, you will find. And these people who are seeing rejection everywhere, they become more defensive and pushy, or they kind of withdraw completely. Both of these, which actually increase their chances of being rejected, because what they seek out, they will find. It's also in the reticular activating system of your mind. You're going to find something that you are hyper aware of. So your brain is searching and scanning to find and make you right. That's another job of the mind, is to make you right. So it's going to find what you're looking for, rejection. So here's how you can change everything, or start to change. Most of the time, rejection has absolutely nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. Think about this. People are so wrapped up in their own lives. I'm sure you are. I am too. We're wrapped up in our fears and our insecurities and challenges, and they rarely take time to intentionally reject or hurt anyone. I said this earlier. We're not looking to hurt anyone or judge anyone or like purposely to hurt them. I say this all the time. People are so involved in their own lives that they are not thinking about you or your feelings. And I say this in a positive way. Once again, it's not about you. It's totally their issues. That person who ghosted you, they're probably wrestling with their own demons, their past relationship trauma, their fear of commitment, their timing issues. That has zero to do with you and your worth as a person. I'm going to repeat that again. That has zero to do with you, with your worth as a person. So, this is not just a nice idea to make you feel better. It is supported by the research that I shared earlier. That same study that I mentioned found an extensive overlap between the brain regions activated during both rejection and acceptance. So, whether we're being accepted or rejected, our brain activates the same network involved in understanding others' intentions. This tells us that our brain is less concerned with whether the outcome is positive or negative, and it's more focused on the social significance of the interaction. So instead of viewing rejection as a reflection of your value, see it as feedback about alignment. Just like you wouldn't blame yourself if a shoe didn't fit or if you don't enjoy a particular food, there is no need to blame yourself when a potential connection doesn't work. As I said before, Eleanor Roosevelt wisely said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." It's just not a motivational quote that you can slap on a refrigerator magnet. It is neurologically accurate. When you fully accept yourself, you create this incredible buffer against the sting of what feels like rejection. The most effective way to rewire your response to rejection is to strengthen your relationship with who? Yourself, which changes how your brain processes social feedback. This approach will work because it shifts your focus from seeking this external validation to building your internal worth, which is a main point of this entire podcast. When you truly understand that the most people's reactions are about themselves, not you, you free yourself from this exhausting cycle of like second guessing and trying to people please. And I know this might be a hard pill to swallow, but you need to keep reminding yourself it's not about you. Most things are not personal. Marissa Peer shares some amazing examples in her book about how rejection often leads to greater opportunities. Catherine Zeta-Jones was devastated after a relationship ended. She moved to America and to recover from this, and she ended up meeting Michael Douglas. And what initially felt like a crushing rejection ultimately led her to a much better path. She also tells another story that I love. about herself. She was rejected from her dance teaching position at a prestigious London studio. After being turned down by a second studio, she went to a third, and it was a less upscale gym where they hired her immediately. Within weeks of taking that lesser job, she met the love of her life at that gym, and she moved to Chicago with him 6 months later. And she says, if I had not been fired, then rejected twice, I would not have met him, moved to America, and my life would have not changed as fantastically as it did. That's a quote right from her book. Think about all the celebrities who were initially rejected. Like Kate Beckinsale was told by her teacher that she had no acting ability. Will Young was told by Simon Cowell that his performance was distinctly average. But Will refused to accept this judgment and stood his ground. Even in reality TV, those who get rejected often achieve greater success than the actual winners. So, I want you to try something. Take a few moments and imagine if your first relationship hadn't ended, or if that early job rejection hadn't happened. Where would you be? For me, I wouldn't have my daughter, and I would probably be married with way too many kids. Something my first husband wanted, but I did not. Yes, I was married twice. So I'm talking about the first one here. And let me note here, I left him after 3 months of marriage. Why? Was it something he did? No. He was a wonderful, loving man. And it was me. It was totally me. It was not him. I had doubts and I should have never gotten married. It was never, ever him. And also, if I did not get out of that marriage, I wouldn't have my daughter, my beautiful baby girl who's going to be 17. Anyway, when we look back at rejections that hurt terribly in the moment, we tend to see that they were actually gifts that redirected us to much better paths. As it was for him, my ex husband, too, because he also now has a son, which he wouldn't have had. So I want to acknowledge that the ideas that I've shared today come from both clinical research, the transformative work of Marissa Peer in her book Ultimate Confidence, and my own stories and experiences. The science on rejection comes from studies published in journals like Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience. I found that combining evidence-based approaches with practical tools gives us the most complete picture of how we can transform our relationship with rejection and ultimately ourselves in the end. If you are ready to put these ideas into practice and build the kind of self-worth that rejection cannot touch, let me know. Please hit me up on Instagram at the girl with the vine tattoo. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you are from one of those countries that I mentioned earlier, please also come find me. Let's say hello. Before we wrap up today, I have a journal prompt for you to work with this week. Think about a rejection that still stings when you remember it. What specific story did you tell yourself about what this rejection meant about you or still means about you? Maybe it was I'm too much or I'm not enough or there must be something wrong with me. Now consider an alternative interpretation. How can you flip that? What might have been happening for the other person that had absolutely nothing to do with your worth? Like Jimmy and his issues with his job, being unhappy. How would your dating life change if you approached rejection with curiosity instead of shame? The cool thing about this exercise is that it actually creates these new neural pathways in your brain, which I talk about a lot. Each time you practice looking at rejection through this new lens, you strengthen those pathways, you build them even stronger, and it makes it easier to respond to future rejections with resilience rather than self-doubt, like the earlier story that I told you about with the holy man. This is neuroplasticity in action. Your brain is rewiring itself based on how you choose to interpret your experiences. If this episode hit home for you today, I want you to do me a favor. Please share it with a friend who might be struggling with dating rejection. Sometimes just knowing that we're not alone in these experiences can be incredibly healing. And honestly, we all need these reminders sometimes, even myself. All right, so next week, I'm going to be answering a question from a listener in New York that I know so many of you can relate to. She writes, how do I move on from a long term relationship with the love of my life if I don't think I could ever replace him? We're going to explore why the whole concept of this kind of replacing someone or feeling like you're never going to find someone like them again is actually part of the problem, and how to honor your past love while creating space for new possibilities. It is going to be so good. I've already started writing it. Until then, I want you to remember you're not being rejected. You're being redirected to something better. So I want you to stay intentional, never settle, keep your heart open to possibilities, and I will talk to you next week.